A few weeks ago, I bought a 1974 Corvette Stingray, and a few days after that, I bought a 2003 GMC Yukon to tear out its engine and drop into the Corvette. The Yukon's been torn apart, the Corvette is ready, and this week, I'm getting that sweet V8 LS motor installed. All right, so before I put this engine in here, there's a couple of things I want to do involving the sensors, because you kind of have to match the sensor, like the oil pressure sensor and the water temperature sensor, from your gauges or from your original car, not from your new engine, because they're not going to be in the same range. The good news is that the LS motors have kind of a convenient spot to put an aftermarket or a different engine temperature sensor. The bad news is that it is too small for this Corvette one. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to carve out or drill out, I haven't decided yet, probably a mixture of both, and then tap threads for this guy. It makes me a little nervous to drill straight into the aluminum cylinder head, but I'm just going to go for it. I want to see what happens. The oil pressure sensor is a little bit easier, actually a lot easier. For this guy, I just drill out this one a little bit, tap it for this metric thread, and that thing should live right there pretty happily. So let's do this one first. Let's pull off the Band-Aid and we'll do the drilling of the cylinder head first. All right, wish me luck. All right, I got this thing carved out, like hand carved out. My plan was to first just start to kind of encourage the hole to go up into the left, because I didn't think I had enough room down into the right, and I didn't want to accidentally hit the exhaust flange or anything like that. But I realized that I didn't have a drill bit that was anywhere near this big, so I kind of just hand carved the whole thing. It's kind of a crazy way to do this. Probably the dumbest way to do this. Probably should have just went and got a drill bit, but I got it. I think it's pretty darn close. And this thing does now fit pretty much perfectly in there, of course, without the threads. I think I'll go ahead and now thread this guy with this big thing. And these are tapered threads, meaning they get wider as they go in. So I'm pretty sure this is really gonna work pretty well. I think I made this hole a little bit too big. That's really not ideal. That's kind of bad, actually. That was stupid. I probably should have been a little bit more careful when I was carving this thing out. Yeah, it's a little bit, there's like practically no threads on this left side or on this right side. I do have some good threads up here though, so I got something. It'll hang on to it, and maybe I can wrap just like a ton of that tape and hope it doesn't pop out. All right, well, the huge amount of Teflon tape did not work, and the thing never got tight, and I know that's gonna leak, so I think I'm gonna try and weld some more material back into this thing, which is totally stupid, and this is really a disaster. But I think if I just get like just a little bit of material around the outside with my spool gun, I got my argon gas hooked up, then I can make this a little bit smaller and we should be okay. All right, we gotta do it. I have no choice. Let's give this a try. Okay, that worked. I was able to weld enough of a perimeter around this thing to get just a very good bite on this temperature sensor. Not ideal. I will say that that's a good demonstration on how not to add a temperature sensor to your LS engine, but it worked out. I'm so embarrassed by those welds that I didn't even show you them. But trust me when I say that there was a perimeter of threads, a few threads, and I'm sure this thing will be okay. I'm sure it won't leak because I used a very generous amount of RTV. I hope I didn't break anything. I guess we'll see, but good, fixed. Let's never talk about that again. All right, so this one should go way easier. I'm just gonna pull this guy off of here, drill this out just a little bit and thread it with a metric something or other. Oh, you know what? That's not metric. That's standard. I hope I have that thing. Anyway, we're gonna get this threaded, and then we should have an oil pressure sensor for our gauge in the Corvette. All right, much easier. This thing was clearly built for a 1/4-inch pipe thread, so that is good. Now I have a oil pressure sensor. All right, so on the topic of gauges, there is going to be a bit of the original wiring that I'm gonna need to connect my new LS swap wiring into. And there are so many just kind of like clipped hanging wires everywhere. Here's another one. I think I found maybe like 4 or 5. Got some sort of crazy jumper here with some like really old squishy, as you can see, barely hanging on wire, rubber, whatever. And we even have like a little cut wire here that somebody put some electrical tape on, but you know, it's like sort of half cut, probably burned on something. So this is the exact type of stuff that causes electrical gremlins. You know, one of these wires come loose and touch or ground or whatever. And so I like to kind of cut all of this old stuff back and fix all of these problems. And you know, if there's any wires that need to be terminated, we'll terminate them safely instead of just kind of leaving like exposed wires hanging out. This is what every sort of like, you know, project car, or not even project cars, just every car that I bought looks like, just crazy wiring like this. I don't know if that says something about me or if that's just normal for like every old car or whatever, every car that's prone to being modified. So yeah, anyway, there you go. We'll get all this stuff cleaned up, hopefully every wire figured out where it goes, and get stuff routed in preparation for this sweet LS to drop right in here. We'll plug everything in. All right, I think the very last thing I want to do before I install this engine is to replace the battery cable, because this thing is very old and a little bit crunchy. Oh, look at that. Copper clad aluminum, not good. I wonder if this is an aftermarket battery cable. It's a pretty heavy gauge, but copper clad aluminum is not as good as solid copper, which is what this guy is. I think this is pretty good stuff. This is 2 gauge. I hope it's enough. It definitely looks a little bit smaller gauge. I think that one might be like 1 gauge or even 0 gauge. But this one's solid copper, so this should be as good. And yeah, so I'm gonna install that while the engine's out, because it goes right down the transmission tunnel, and it'll be much easier before the transmission is in. And I do want to do one little upgrade. I've been told that Corvettes, I don't know if it's specific to the C3 or all Corvettes, kind of don't really have the best grounding. And of course the battery lives right here behind the seat, and the ground cable just kind of snakes around and grabs onto the frame somewhere down there. So there actually isn't a ground cable going straight to the engine, and I want to add one. I think that's going to be a good upgrade. So instead of 1 single battery cable going up, we're going to put 2, and we're going to ground the battery straight to the motor. And then of course we'll also ground it to the frame back there. We'll ground it to the frame up here. We're going to have grounds everywhere because that's the way I do things. All right, here we go. Brand new battery cables installed. Got some good length over there, and got it ran all the way up around to the battery box. Yeah. Wrong way.
Hey.
Push it.
Okay, push it.
And then what's that oil pan spots? There we go.
More? More down?
Yeah, a little bit. Okay, let me. There we go. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, perfect. Okay, now let me adjust. We're almost past. Ooh, yeah. All right, LS is officially installed in the Corvette, and it fits pretty good actually. I've got the engine mount plates almost all the way set back. In fact, if you look at the wheels, I think I might actually be able to claim that this is a mid-engine car because it's actually technically behind the front axle, so that's actually pretty awesome. The transmission does seem to fit in the transmission tunnel. In fact, we have quite a bit of clearance up here. Plenty of room to put my hand back there. So the real question is, I think, will this intake manifold fit? And I don't have super high hopes because really looking at this thing, it's actually pretty gigantic. There we go. Yeah, that's peaking up quite a bit. Hoods always actually kind of slope up a little bit more than you think, but I don't know, this is pushing it for sure. I would definitely have to delete stuff like this and maybe shave it down. I'll give it a try. I'll give it an attempt because I really would like to use this free truck manifold, but I can pretty easily just swap on like an LS1 or an LS6 intake, which are kind of a little bit expensive nowadays, but that's going to be a thing to test if the hood fits on here. I mean, for sure I'll need to shave off every last little bit of plastic that doesn't need to be there, but I don't know. The other big question is the headers, or actually the exhaust manifolds. It kind of seems like these guys would be okay. There's actually a good bit of room there. Transmission is looking pretty good as well. Oh, this area right here, which is the power steering, looks good with that Camaro oil pan. So I think all of the things that I read from the internet are all pretty true, and I think this thing's actually gonna fit in here pretty good. All right, I got this thing up on blocks here so we can crawl under and take a look at what this thing looks like. Before I do that, I know that I put this intake manifold on and immediately thought like there's no way this thing is gonna fit. But I looked up the current costs of LS6 and even LS1 intake manifolds, just used stock manifolds, high mileage. And I know they used to be cheap, but at this point, they're actually kind of expensive. I think there are just too many truck motors out there, people trying to swap the intakes on. That's just not the way I do things. I'm the extreme budget car builder. I like to show just how cheap you can do these engine swaps. They say these truck manifolds actually have pretty good flow because they have such huge runners. I think this is even on par with an LS6 manifold, maybe even a little bit better. So, and since I've sold a lot of parts off of that donor Tahoe, I'd actually be spending more money on the intake manifold than I've spent on the entire engine, transmission, harness all together. So I'm gonna attempt to use this manifold. I think that if I move this back that little extra notch, right now I have it just one position forward, I feel like everything except the dipstick has plenty of room to move back. That'll be about half an inch or so. That'll give me just a little bit more hope. And I did take some measurements. I have the hood over there sitting upside down. This is like a semi-cowl hood, so the hood actually does bump up quite a bit. You can see this sort of cowl area And that gives it quite a bit of room. For my measurements, about 3 inches from the edge here or 2 inches from here. And when we take a look at this guy, kind of hard to eyeball, but that is something like 2 to 3 inches. Obviously, I'd end up having to remove whatever this is, which I don't think I need anyway. I think that might be a evap or something like that. And I would end up shaving off absolutely everything I can. It definitely, this here, the throttle body is going to be my biggest problem. But maybe I can angle this engine whole, you know, shooting match up a little bit. Maybe, just maybe we can get this thing to fit. All right, I got this guy moved back all the way to the back notch on this, or the back setting on this plate, which is actually pretty awesome. I feel like I might have been able to even go back a little bit further. I mean, it's pushing it. The center of the wheels right here, I mean, that's a mid-engine car if you ask me. It's my understanding that anything that's behind either the front axle or in front of the rear axle, basically this whole area right here, can be classified as a mid-engine car. So I'm gonna look it up, but I'm gonna call this guy mid-engine for now. All right, I got all of the like little tabs and mounting things and little plastic barrier, I don't know, whatever thing to hold the wiring harness, I think. I got all that stuff shaved off here. So I think that this should be as low as I need it to be for testing purposes. I think really right here is gonna be my biggest issue. And then of course, if this does end up fitting, I don't want to waste the time now, but if it does end up fitting, then I will go ahead and shave off everything, you know, make it as nice looking as possible. I know it's not possible to make this intake manifold nice looking because it's just kind of ugly, but yeah, let's, I guess, get this thing thrown back on there and put the front accessories on, and then we'll put the hood on and see what happens. Okay, well, this alternator definitely is very, very up high, so I'm unsure if that's gonna fit. They do make aftermarket options that are pretty cheap. I'm not gonna worry about it just yet. I've always bought truck motors instead of car motors because of the lower end clearance. And there's evidence right there that that is perfect for this guy. All right, I got the hood back on and I did a little bit of test fitting and I think this thing is gonna fit. It's hanging up a little bit on the middle and I think that this might be the reason why. So I should have cut these off and I'm gonna do that now. The alternator did not fit, not even close. And I don't wanna really monkey with that too much. I'm just gonna go ahead and get some aftermarket brackets because I know they make them, possibly just even drop it down. Maybe there's a way I can do it with this thing, like try and fabricate, or I don't know. I'll think about that. I gotta drop this guy down though, but I'm gonna cut off everything that I can. I'm gonna cut off as much as I can from this guy. We'll test fit this again and we'll see just how close this is. I definitely don't want it rubbing on the hood and it's gonna be almost there, but I think this might be okay. All right, we give this guy a little bit more of a haircut and I don't think there's gonna be any high points. I think this guy, which can't be, definitely the fuel rail can't be moved. So I think that's just about as far down as I can go. And it's looking pretty flat. So let's give this a try. Okay. I mean, that's just about it. Can't really latch this down. I don't know if it's hitting something or not. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm gonna put a little bit of weight on this thing just to push it down and we'll crawl underneath and see if this thing's touching. All right, I got a spare tire on there. It works. Let's take a look down here. Yeah, that throttle body is very close. I think it might be touching. Let's see. Well, there's still room. You can see that this thing still wiggles in there. So it must be touching on something else, but it's not touching on the intake manifold. So it might just be misalignment that's causing this thing to kind of stay up at the center. But the fact that there's still movement here means that it's not touching the intake manifold. All right, just one last check here. I put some grease on all of the high points. This is kind of like a little trick I like to do to make sure nothing is touching, or because you know sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. These are all the high points I figure, the top of the air hose, whatever the sensor is, map sensor or something. Let's take a look here one last time. Shut the hood, give it a good press down. Everything's flush. There we go. That should be as far down as it goes. No grease up here whatsoever. So it's definitely not getting close enough to even touching the top of that, even like a 1/4 inch up. So I think we can officially say that this crazy tall truck manifold does actually fit in a C3 Corvette, as long as you get the engine mounted all the way back on these plates, as far back as you know, I won't even say as far back as you can, because I still have like at least an inch to go. So if you get even more aggressive plates, you can even push this back a little bit more. But as long as you get this thing on the most forward position on your typical LS swap engine plates, and you give this thing a haircut, you can keep the factory truck LS intake manifold. I'm so happy with this. Not having to replace this manifold, and not even having to replace this throttle body here, is going to save me like maybe close to $1,000. These, you know, the LS1 intake manifold is nowadays running, like I said, maybe like $500, $600, $700 even. And to have to switch out the throttle body, you know, it would have cost me like another $200, $300, whatever, with the adapter plates and all that stuff. So this is a huge savings. And this is a great intake manifold too, I should say. The reason why I'm not going out there and trying to get something that'll flow better than this is that this is actually a very, very good intake manifold. If you know anything about these LS intakes, you know that the truck intakes and the Trailblazer SS intakes are some of the best ones you can get. It was going to bum me out to have to pay, you know, whatever, $600 and take a downgraded intake manifold. This thing is solid. This is going to be a good runner. I'm super, super happy. It's a good day. All right, so I think I want to go ahead and check a few other front-end fitment things here. I suppose I can remove this because I know it needs to be done. We'll figure that out. But I do want to double check the water pump, which is the truck water pump. Rumor has it these tubes here cause a little bit of fitment issues, so we'll have to see about that. But let me just throw this thing on there. I guess I'll pull this guy off, then throw this thing on there. Double check everything looks good, and then we can go from there. All right, so here's our first like really big snag here. The water pump absolutely does not fit well. Thermostat housing is pointed not in the right direction. This is going straight into this, whatever, this A-arm thing. And these things are straight up hitting the water inlets here. So I was kind of expecting this. I didn't think they'd be this bad, but they're definitely just not even close to fitting. And I still even have a little bit of room to drop down here. So I think my plan for these guys is on my new water pump, because of course I'm going to replace this old thing, is to remove these two hose things, and then I'm going to go ahead and tap these for, you know, like a pipe thread, and then just put on a couple of 90-degree fittings, you know, probably pointed straight up or possibly straight down, I'm not sure. And if I'm not mistaken, there are different options for thermostat housings that maybe would angle it in a different direction. So I think that'll be the answer for that guy. But otherwise, this thing seems okay. I think that clearance is going to be fine. In fact, I suppose I can go ahead and just throw the radiator in, kind of test it out. Let me do that real quick. Okay, well, just as I thought, there's just way more than enough room here to fit the front truck accessories with the radiator and with as big of a fan as you possibly could want. So it's strange to me that it's ever been suggested that a truck front accessory system won't fit on a Corvette, because it clearly is totally fine. I guess that goes to show you, don't believe everything you read online. I guess I'm online, but you're not reading it, you're seeing it. And as you can see, this thing clearly fits just fine. So save yourself some money. I'm just really starting to think that the truck motor is the way to go. Intake manifold, front accessory drive, you can keep all of that stuff, except for the alternator. With alternator and a slight modification to the water pump, and you can get yourself a cheap motor for your Corvette.